Good afternoon, everyone. I think I would like to start just saying that just like Fabienne, I belong to those optimistic people that believe things can change between today and the day the Parliament will be voting on this fourth AML directive. And the things I will be sharing with you today tell you what are those things that, as Western Union is concerned, we believe still have to be fought twice before we go to the final vote. But before we go into that, let me start first with a brief snapshot on the remittance industry and the Western company in particular. So as you know, companies like us provide fast, secure, convenient fund transfers, domestically and cross-border. Typically, we actually deal with small amounts, 200 euro, 300 euro in average, that are sent from one individual to another individual, and there is no need for a bank account to process such transaction, either on the send or the receive side. So these are the core attributes. On the top of that, we do that instantaneously, so we talk about money in minutes. And our primary consumers around the world, and in the EU as well, are actually the people we call the underserved and the underbanked. So our industry is actually highly relevant for financial inclusion, from what I said before. And often it is the very first step towards what we call formal financial services. So we are the entry gate, for example, to the migrants for then what is the traditional banking industry. From a distribution standpoint, we usually work through what we call representative agents as our business model. And it's interesting to see that over the past years, we've been, as an industry, progressively phasing out from cash and moving more into either bank money or e-money operations. And that's already a point that is connecting us to how these things are going into the fourth AML directive. So that means we're actually translating into an increasing usage of digital channels that are there to change and to accompany the change in consumer needs. It's a commercial success for the industry in general and in UE as well. And that's a service that clients, when you speak to them and you ask them about money transfer in general, recognize as reliable, trusted, and safe, and most needed for many of them. In terms of figure, the global remittance market has reached $550 billion in 2013, and that market is still growing by 6 to 8% annually and globally, and also in the EU thanks to the globalization and the entry of migrants every year. When you look at Western Union within that industry, we are actually present in 200 countries and territories. We manage more than 120 different currencies, and we have a network worldwide of 500,000 locations and more than 100,000 ATMs. And within the EU alone, we're talking about 140,000 point of sales for our agents and 50 ATMs as well. Coming back to the bank money I mentioned before. We have two conduits for business. We have a payment institution that is licensed in Ireland, that is there actually to serve our cash-to-cash money transfer business. And we have also a traditional credit institution that is licensed in Austria for the SME payment business, the prepaid and the online payment. Our online money transfer is actually available in 19 European countries. So now that I'm done with this, I would like now to comment on this team that is first of all fighting money laundering before I address the fourth AML directive. Obviously, as an AML person, it's dear to my heart. We stick to the highest AML CFT standards at Western Union, not only because we believe it's a corporate responsibility or a regulatory obligation, but also because we believe as a private company it's a competitive advantage. And in that particular framework, we actually promote what we call our high-level principles that I would like to address with you today. First of all, in this kind of discussions, when we pass new regulation on AML that touch our business and our clients, we would like to push every party to acknowledge the fact that our market is unique and our industry is unique. We deal with remittance market and remittance people. We have an agent model that is different from the banking distribution sector. And in the light of the G20 meetings, discussions, and outcome, we believe that there should be a recognition of the social and the economic importance of remittance and this industry in Europe and elsewhere. When it comes more specifically to the EU rules, we believe that they should better take into account the transactional nature of the global remittance market. We don't deal with customers, we deal with occasional consumers. And those EU rules shall also allow innovation, as it has been said before, to take place in a better manner for online money transfer, for mobile money transfer. And the reality is we believe we're not there yet. The existing AML CFT rule in Europe do not help at all, especially for the non-face-to-face transaction, as it has been said before for a different industry. And when you take a broader perspective to the issue, and you look at other FATF jurisdictions around the world, you soon realize that they may have taken a better tailored AML regime, and they have actually, as a consequence of that, a more vibrant mobile remittance market as a result, and definitively better than how we do in Europe. My third and final high principle, I think EU has to make some progress on everything related to e-signature and e-identification methods. That's critical for us and I guess for many other industries. It's critical, of course, to facilitate the customer identification in the growing e-commerce, in the e-payment market, and any new methods to send money from peer-to-peer. Talking now about the fourth AML directive proposal, and that will be my concluding points. First of all, we think we are very far away from an idea of maximum harmonization of the AML rules. That should be the goal, though. And currently, we're dealing with 28 different regimes. As an AML expert working on programs on a daily basis, I can tell you it's a nightmare. First of all, we definitively welcome the current proposals to achieve more harmonization via the European Banking Authority. We just regret that the CBA is currently not in a position to fulfill a much-needed harmonization role in the payments and the ML area, potentially due to a lack of resource and also lack of prioritization. So there's something to think about here. We are advocating also for the inclusion into the final text of some key elements of relevance for us and for the European remittance industry. I'd like to come back on the central point of contact. There should be some flexibility regarding the implementation of these requirements, because for companies like us, we should be allowed to, of course, use our own staff to comply with these requirements, but also our agents and any other partners that we believe as point of contact, regardless of their geographical location, can do the thing and can actually become the representative of our company if they have the necessary resources and the necessary skill sets. And it's us to demonstrate about that. Regarding the simplified CDD regime for electronic money product that exists today in the third AML directive, and we all know about this transaction limit, it's 250 euro per transaction, it's 2,500 euro. There, we believe that the policymakers should also keep that in the fourth AML directive, but also broaden the scope to include also all kind of innovative payment products beyond electronic money only. So I'm also talking about cash and bank money. The consequence of this not being done today is that, again, and that's an important message we want to convey today, that Europe is lagging behind in terms of innovative remittance channel. And we believe that if we go into the direction as it is today with the fourth AML directive, there will be even one more obstacle in this regard. There is another element of concern that I would like to bring to you. It's the proposed 1,000 euro CDD threshold for the wire transfer. So I'm talking about the new Article 10, paragraph B, alinéa 2. So before we address the content, let me just express first some concerns related to the way this requirement has been introduced into the more general AMLD discussion and context. And for those who remember about it, it has been actually surfaced in autumn 2013 through a third council compromise. It's not something that came originally from the Commission proposal. And that's actually something that makes me extremely uncomfortable because we did not follow the traditional EU rules, having impact assessment exercise being pursued when such a critical change and such a critical proposal is brought to the table. That's actually quite incredible for an amendment like that when you consider the critical consequences that it can have on the players and on the clients. So now looking at the content, we consider that the revised Article 10, as I said before, is quite burdensome for transactional payment services like ours. The practical consequence is that all the list of CDD requirements that you find in the new Article 11 will become applicable to each occasional fund transfers that are exceeding 1,000 euro. We believe it's not proportional and we believe it's not necessary. First of all, because all those fund transfers that are exceeding 1,000 euro are already subject to the fund transfer regulations. And as you know, this regulation already requires some CDD measures. We are, for example, at Western Union already verifying, identifying and verifying the sender information. That CDD obligation, the way it is today in the Article 10, go far beyond those requirements, as you find them in the fund transfer regulations. And that's actually creating an issue because we believe the article as it stands today typically apply in a bank account opening procedure, but not in an industry like us. So if you consider that we have to apply the text as it is today, that would create a major operational challenge. I'm just done in 30 seconds. Because our agents are not equipped for that, and they are not equipped to support bank-type CDD requirement. But if we have this initiative being approved, it will create the same cost burden that was presented before. And that cost burden will, first of all, have potentially to go to the clients. But if it doesn't go to the client and we internalize it, it will actually create a disadvantage between the formal money transfer operator like us and the big enemy that is the Awala that we try to fight on a daily basis for the benefit of the society in Europe. So let's be aware of all of this. With this Article 10 as it stands today, it's a great risk of driving many remittance transactions underground. We will be losing transparency and visibility on the transaction flow. That's a consequence to take into account. And as I said before, other FATF jurisdictions, I followed what I consider to be a better tailored approach in this context. The US, for example. The US, who is also subject to the FATF, has actually comparable CDD measures for transactions exceeding €3,000 only. So the Western recommendation, my last 2 points. I would love to see these requirements deleted, of course. That will align the EU with the other FATF countries, like the US regime I mentioned before. And if it's difficult to consider deleting this Article 10b.2 or amend it, let's amend the Article 11, the one that actually determines which CDD steps apply for qualifying money transfer. There are 4 elements in this article, A, B, C, D. We want to keep the A and the B because we believe they apply to the occasional transaction. We want people to reconsider the C and the D because they talk about business relationship and they don't talk about occasional transactions. So there may be even a conflict here looking at those 4 elements. Thank you.